In the realm of animation, vivid colors and exaggerated characters bring to life epic battles and conflicts. From classic Looney Tunes to modern day animations, war is portrayed in a surreal and often comical light. But beyond the realm of fantasy, the real world is disfigured by the harsh realities of war. Devastation, loss, and untold suffering paint a stark contrast to the eccentric portrayals we see on screen. War is a common thing to be showcased in a cartoon way, with series like the Clone Wars from the Star Wars world, with this showcasing its soldiers as clones and robots who have little personal queries with war and are happy to go through conflict with no scares for the loss of their fellow soldiers. There is also the strong use of war as a theme for video games, with games like Call of Duty, PUBG, and Apex Legends being some examples. These games present their characters as heartless and having little care for the loss of their fellow soldiers, as well as being happy to run in conflict and face little remorse for the loss of others. They are never saddened by the loss of their fellow comrades. These characters are presented in gears that have some resemblance to that of a military uniform, but has a creative twist for some use of bright colours and lack of necessary equipment to survive, which could be deemed as unrealistic. These characters are presented with little emotion and show a complete lack of care for loss. This then presents them as something completely different to other people. But upon the baseline, they rarely react to loss and seem to have a lack of common feelings that we'd expect from humans, like the feeling of scares. This makes it more confusing to see how they are placed upon real people, as it completely lacks what is considered a common emotion to have. War is a depressing act. It drains everything from an officer and forces them through something they may never recover from, mentally or physically. It is a painful act, and you can never guarantee who will survive and can't always guarantee the survival of your friends, brothers, or sisters. Soldiers go through a lot, and their mental takes a huge tux. They witness so much loss they can never settle down and accept what happens, as they are always getting rushed into the next, never really getting a chance to reset, and when they do, get overwhelmed with the loss of so many friends.
Sure, I grew up in a small town in Texas, and from a young age I always looked up to the men and women in uniform. My grandfather served in World War II, and his stories of bravery and camaraderie inspired me. I joined the army right out of high school, seeking a sense of purpose and a way to serve my country. I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. I served with the 101st Airborne Division, and we were stationed in some of the most dangerous regions of the country. Our mission was to conduct counterinsurgency operations and help secure local villages. There were many, but a few stand out. One was when we were on patrol, and our convoy hit an Aid. The explosion was massive, and we lost several good men that day. The chaos and the screams are something I'll never forget. Another was during a firefight where we were pinned down for hours. The constant fear of not knowing if you'd make it out alive wears on you. Initially, I didn't think much about it. I was focused on surviving and completing the mission. But after I returned home, it hit me hard. I started having nightmares and flashbacks. Little things would trigger intense memories of the battlefield. I found myself constantly on edge, unable to relax. I felt isolated because no one around me could truly understand what I'd been through. It took me a while to admit I needed help. There's a stigma in the military about showing weakness, and I didn't want to be seen as someone who couldn't handle it. But eventually, the weight became too much. I reached out to the VA and started seeing a therapist. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and it was a relief to put a name to what I was feeling. Therapy was crucial. Being able to talk about my experiences in a safe environment helped me process the trauma. I also joined a support group for veterans, which was incredibly beneficial. Sharing my story with others who had been through similar experiences made me feel less alone. Exercise and mindfulness practices like meditation also helped manage my anxiety. I'm doing better, but it's a continuous journey. I still have tough days, but I've learned how to cope with them. My advice to other soldiers is to seek help sooner rather than later. There's no shame in admitting you need support. The bravest thing you can do is take care of your mental health. Reach out to your fellow veterans, use the resources available, and don't try to carry the burden alone.
From these accounts, we can tell how tolling war is and how little time they really get with those who they are closest to. They have an obvious struggle with the lack of time spent with loved ones and spend a lot of their time with their fellow officers who can always potentially die. This idea of death of those close friends will always take a massive hit to them mentally, and it's the way they are treated afterwards that must be key. With all this being said, it's clear that there is a lack of realistic elements to cartoons, as they present their soldiers as emotionless characters who are all in one the same and have very few differences in attitudes. Whilst on the other hand, in real life, soldiers are people who go through a lot of mental struggles and rarely get the help they need for what they go through, with the loss of friends and the lack of time spent with loved ones. The biggest issue we witness with this is how the media choose to present its military in animated form, with them being seen as heartless monsters who are all seen as just repeat of each other, or are presented as a similar personality with a slight change to their voice and the way they look. This presentation completely diminishes the actual work and struggle these people go through and makes it seem as if what they do is an easy task and that really is nothing too troubling. As well as this, the lives of those soldiers could be interpreted as being diminished in a way due to the idea that in the game people can come back from the dead. This doesn't allow those who play to really see what loss looks like for a soldier and really understand the struggles they go through. With this being said, as we navigate the complex tapestries of war and conflict, it becomes imperative to understand the fine line between entertainment and reality. Cartoons may provide an escape, but they should never overshadow the urgent need for peace and compassion in a world torn apart by strife. This was a short film made by Lewis Hill. Thanks for watching.